in theaters now is the third, I want to say third sequel, but it's not. It's the second sequel to Paddington, entitled Paddington in Peru, the third film in the big screen live action animated Paddington series. I really like these Paddington movies. You know, I went to see the first one because it was a new film I had to review, and I thought, oh, this is going to be this wispy, I'd like some marmalade, and oh, it's raining a bit, and I've got a coat and a hat. It wasn't that. It was really sharp. It was really funny and creative, astounding visuals, and really legitimately funny. The second Paddington, maybe even more so. A really, really fun movie. Now we're up to the third sequel. Third sequel is not always the charm for film series, so what did I think of it? I thought it was very pleasant. I think it's probably, for me, the third in the series in terms of how much I liked it. I like the other two more than this one. But it had that same sense of whimsy, sense of humor, sense of slapstick comedy, heart. It's squeaky clean. There's nothing objectionable in this movie. I mean, it's a little edgy here and there where there's peril. They used to say that in the posters where it would say, rated PG for blah, 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 peril. And I was like, what kind of peril's in this? So in this film, Paddington, he comes from the South American jungle. He comes from Peru, or his grandmother, his aunt. So here's the story. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. Basically, the whole idea, they set it up where Paddington was this lost bear who fell out of a tree and went down the river and was found and saved by an older bear who took him in and became his adoptive aunt, I believe. And eventually he went off to the big city and lived with the Brown family in London, and that was what the first two movies were about. So in this film, the twist is that Paddington's aunt has been living in a retirement home for elderly bears run by a group of nuns in Peru, and she's gone missing. She's gone off maybe to find El Dorado or something. We don't quite know. So Paddington and the Brown family fly to Peru to try to find out what's happened to his aunt. And intrigue and treasure hunting and adventure arise. As always, this film is loaded with really good actors, like actors you would recognize. I'm going to read off some of them, and this is probably not even everybody. You get Hugh Bonneville and Emily Mortimer back as the Brown parents. You get Ben Whishaw back as Paddington's voice. You get Imelda Staunton as the voice of Aunt Lucy. You get, let's see, I'm totally not just looking at the IMDb next to me. You get Hayley Atwell briefly in it playing a Faux-American. You get Antonio Banderas. You get Olivia Coleman as a nun who's incredibly funny and can really do anything she shows up to do incredibly well. And it's just this wild and wacky South American jungle adventure comedy with a lot of heart. So if I have any demerits for this film, it's that it maybe focuses on the Antonio Banderas character a little too much. And I say the Antonio Banderas character. He plays this riverboat captain who is from a family of adventurers and treasure hunters. And you see on the wall all of these ancestors of his from previous generations. They're all portrayed by him. And he eventually starts having these delusions or illusions or visions of the ghosts of his family past talking to him, and they're all played by Banderas. So it really lets him be nuts and act in multiple very diverse roles in the film. After a while, for me, I just felt like we were focusing a little too much on his character or family of characters in the film, and maybe a little bit less on Paddington, but it's still a fun movie. It's still a beautiful movie to look at. It looks gorgeous on the big screen, just blazing color, which is something I've always appreciated about the Paddington movies. It's got a little undercurrent of sadness here and there, but it is outweighed by whimsy. And that's a thing growing up when I did in the late 70s into the 80s. It seemed like all children's entertainment had an undercurrent of sorrow in it that always made you sad at some point and always made me as a little kid cry at some point. And modern films don't quite do that as much. They occasionally still will. But the Paddington movies, when they do that, sorry, I get choked up when I talk about marmalade. The Paddington movies may give you some of that, but they give you twice as much joy and heart and silliness in exchange. So don't worry about that if you're bringing a little kid. Your kid's not going to leave the Paddington movie crying. So very, very fun, very much something to see in the theater. All of these films are worth seeing, and it always sounds weird. I always feel like I'm overstressing this to friends where I'm like, I know I sound crazy, but you have to believe me. The Paddington movies are really, really enjoyable for an adult. So if you can, and stay to the very, very end, because there's a little something in I don't remember if it's post credits or in the mid credits, but there's a little gift for you if you enjoyed Paddington 2 in the credits sequence of Paddington in Peru. So in theaters now, by the time you see this, probably not anymore, Paddington in Peru.